Hello everybody and welcome to Cymatic TV. We're going to be going into today the impacts of the solar flares or filament energies that have been hitting the earth all this week, and we're due one this weekend, so I thought I'd give you a heads up on what sort of things to expect with the auroras that have been hitting a much lower altitude over these past week. And there is a reason we're going to be going into this, because must be about the 6th, 7th, maybe the 8th time this year so far that it's come this low in the on the northern hemisphere. Now this is very particular because this ties into pole shift. So we're going to be looking at the mechanics of pole shift and how we turn a sphere inside out. And that ties into beautifully of how our chakras and our personal auras actually work. So we're going to be connecting the whole sort of thing, so it give you an idea of how this energy that's coming out from the sun, going through the earth and coming through you, and how it will affect you.
Don't believe, just know. Cymatic TV, turning vibration into reality.
So there's been quite a few eruptions, as you can well see here on the LASCO satellites at C2 and C3, and we can see a lot of different eruptions, some of them coming in the direction of the earth, some of them going elsewhere. We did have the filament eruption that came earlier on in this week, which you will see on this solar activity here, that's slightly north of that black corona hole that we can see that just came off. And then at the end of the week, a couple of days ago, we had another filament energy which sort of came off in the middle of the sun, which is directly directed towards the earth. Now this has created a lot of this aurora. There is that filament energy that has erupted, that's coming in our direction, and it should be arriving some point this weekend. So all eyes to the sky at the moment. And if you do turn towards the skies during this weekend, you may well be able to see some most beautiful effects, which you can well see here, of some lovely auroras that were taken in various places across northern parts of Europe, it's got to be said, but they have definitely been visible in the southern parts of the UK and northern parts of France, where I am at the moment. And you can see this as the elements come through, mainly sort of hydrogen elements that's mixing with the atmosphere, burning up, and as it does burn up, it creates those auroras that we've been seeing just before. Now this looks all very beautiful and absolutely fantastic, there is no doubt about it, but there is a nastier side to it all. It's a good indication about what is going on with our aura, or our magnetic field of the planet. We've seen the auroras now in the southern part of the UK for I think 7, maybe 8 times this year, which is quite amazing, because normally we get it once every, say, like 10 or 20, maybe even 30 years. But this year we've already seen it 7 or 8 times. I'm not quite sure exactly how many times we've seen it, and we're due another set this weekend. And as I said, it's very beautiful to watch, absolutely amazing, but it signals the weakening field of the magnetic field. And we will just be going into how pole shift is actually driving this. But before we do, let's just familiarize ourselves with the line or energy lines, or ley lines as some people like to call it, on planet Earth. Which is, this is a map that I devised sort of 20 odd years ago, a long time ago, and I put chakras on that earth to sort of signify particular points or hot spots of energies that are in different places across the globe. And one thing you should notice is these lines that crisscross our planet. And these vibrations can be found at different levels. And these lines can be found in the atmosphere, and then much higher up in the ionosphere. And it also can be found as it goes towards the center of the earth as well. And these are really important things that we should know about, because it's connected to the north and south poles, which are definitely shifting at the moment. And these are things, so you must keep this in mind as we go forth. So when we think about the magnetic field of the earth, we've got to think of it like as a material that can be bent, that can be shaped, that can also pass through itself, but it cannot actually be torn, or it cannot be creased, because if it does, that's when we have problems. That's when we create enormous amounts of electricity within the system, and it's exactly the same as what happens when we have a solar flare. A solar flare on the surface of the sun is where the magnetic field cuts itself in a bit of a knot, and then it ties up the negative and the positive, and it creates a short circuit between the pair of them, and that's when it does the eruption. The Earth can do exactly the same thing. And this is where it ties into the idea of turning a sphere inside out. So if you imagine we have this film that goes around the Earth, just like this film here, it can bend, it can move, it can even pass through one another, but you cannot tear it, or it will ruin it, or it will destroy it, and you cannot make a crease in it, or else it will also get destroyed. So if you are trying to push the sphere and turn it from one way to another, you will eventually get a pinch point, which will create that sort of tearing effect of the magnetic field. But here is exactly how they've worked out in the 1970s, and I will link the video that is showing you here, this sort of the turning inside out of a sphere, in the description below, and they created it in the 1970s. One thing you should pay attention to is at the beginning you've got the outside and the inside. It's marked on the video, and as it goes through the inversion between being inside and outside, so turning the sphere inside out, you'll realize that everything is upside down, exactly as what happens on a pole shift. So here it is here, and it's a very particular mechanism that happens in this. And as you can see, it just inverted itself at the end, just so the writing was in the right way, but it actually turns it upside down. Let me just show you that again. So you got the northern and southern hemisphere. Now, if you go back to thinking about those ley lines or those energy lines that I showed you on my map, this bulges on the outside that you can see on this sphere here is exactly like that. And as the energy turns, so do these lines that turn, and these spheres of the sphere gets turned inside out. The magnetic sphere gets turned inside and out as the poles go through the center and comes out. Obviously, you have the north and southern poles that come out of the Earth, and they will actually, it will appear that they are turned like this, inverted, but it's actually just gone through one another, and then it just literally goes and pops back out. Now this is very particular. This also ties in beautifully to our auras and our chakras. When we have an emotion that comes through, and this is where the solar energy will provoke that within us individually and collectively. As it comes through the system and comes through the Earth, it creates a discharge within us, which heightens certain of our energies. And if you think about energies that loop, or our chakras that are like cords that loop outwards, and they make like a flower sort of, or petals as it goes out. Now, if you get a very big shock within your energy or within your life, this is an emotional shock or a physical shock. These energies, or these petals, these cords that go round, get pulled very tightly, and they can snap. And that's what creates a trauma within us. Obviously, there is the physical situation that is around us that also creates the trauma, but the energetical trauma actually stays and maintains that fear within us. Once we change the energy system, or we're in healing, which is what I do, once you change those petals, then you can actually let go of it emotionally and energetically, that trauma. You will not forget the actual physical aspect that happened within the situation, but you will be able to get past it and start using it in a very, very positive way. So this is how chakras and auras work. They work in exactly the same way as our planet, as our sun, and as our universe. As they say in the old texts, God created us in God's image. And that doesn't necessarily mean that God is a human being. It just means that we have exactly the same energy imprint. We have the same mechanics. We have the same makeup, such as trees, such as birds, such as animals, such as fish, such as planets, solar system. Everything abides by certain basic rules and regulations as regards to energy. If you can't apply a philosophy across the board through all of those sort of systems, then it's not an eternal truth. And there is a lot of problems in this world with that, because we are applying a lot of things, but actually it is a lot of illusions. Once we come down to the mechanics of it all, it's very simple to sort of prove between what is possible energetically and what is not possible energetically. So we have these aurora borealises that are going to be coming through this weekend. And they've come from that filament energy that I showed you early on. Now, filament energy is equivalent of the element of water. Now, the water is very emotional, and it will be in a very emotional weekend. And I think a lot of things will come to the surface over this weekend. So if you are out and about in the world this weekend, I would be very wary. Yes, we have 11/11, 11th of November. I have a major problem with numerology. The problem I have with numerology is it's not very old, and it depends on who decided the beginning date. Once if you go into sort of the dates according to Muslims, it's not the same dates according to Christians. And so therefore the timings don't really stack up. The numbers don't really stack up. Yes, that can be tied into a lot of magic in order to create a situation. But at the end of the day, a date like 2012, do we all remember that? I certainly do. I was going around doing conferences saying what a load of twaddle it was. And boy, was it a load of twaddle. Yes, there were some major things going on the energy fields of 2012. That is true. But it certainly wasn't the end of the earth, because we are still here. So I wouldn't believe everything. And once you start learning and knowing about these, about energy and how it actually works, and this is what we're trying to do on Cymatic TV. Over the next few months, we will be gradually unpacking this sort of mechanic here and trying to help you, to help yourself to connect to this energy. And this is once you start feeling this energy sort of coming through you, and this is a particular way of doing it, which I do on my workshops, to help you to feel that energy physically, emotionally, energetically. So then you can then start putting that trilogy together. And once you can put it together, you can use this impacting energy from the prana energy, or the key energy that's coming through from the sun, in a very, very positive way. You can use this emotion as it builds up into you to actually achieve things within your life. You can give it direction. Give your purpose in life a real force to be reckoned with. And once you can start doing that, and you can start combining those three things together, there a lot of things become possible. I will be going out doing a bit of dowsing over the weekend, just to get a message from the earth, to see what the earth says, the chakra sequences from the earth. So you're going to want to subscribe, click that bell so you get notifications, so then you'll be able to see what the earth is trying to sort of convey through its energies as she welcomes that impact from the solar eruptions, because it is a real sign of pole shift. And pole shift is coming barreling down the road to us at the moment. We don't have exceptional amounts of time. I expect to see the pole shift fully activated and fully done within my lifetime. You shouldn't be scared because you cannot change it. It's impossible to change it. There's nothing to be scared about. But once we embrace it and engage in it, because individually we are like batteries. And think of all those people on this globe. If we actually started moving in one direction and started using that energy to connect with the earth, it will make this transition through this pole shift a lot easier. And it will also create an evolution that will go way beyond what we could ever imagine in our connection to technology and advancements within the human race. Okay, I will see you at some point over the weekend for that Earth's messages and those chakra sequences. In the meantime, don't forget, life should be fun, so please do enjoy.